sorry, and by way of introduction, my name is Omid. I have been asked to be the moderator for today. Being a moderator is always a lot of fun because you don't actually have to know very much. You just have to find people's weak points and then ask questions and then get them to sweat. So hopefully I get our CEOs to sweat a little bit. You can judge if I'm successful or not by the end of the session. And I invite you to join me in doing so. And then I'm going to ask our first two founders of our SMEs to join us on stage. Great, come on up, folks. And maybe what we can do is if we can go down and just give us an introduction. In the spirit of going off script, we all kind of know your name, we kind of know what you do, so tell us something else.
Hi, everybody. So again, I'm Jahil. It's a pleasure to meet everyone. This is my third AGRF. I love people. I love conversations, but AGRF is a very testing environment, even for me. It's a lot of high-frequency conversations, and I find myself exhausted around 4 or 5. So keep your expectations low.
Yeah, well, my name is Nwagaba John Charles. I come from Uganda. First and foremost, I congratulate myself for being on this panel. Yeah, it is my first time.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eloge Mungere. I'm from Burundi. I'm founder and the CEO of Best Food Solutions, a social venture which processes chili into oily powder and dried chilies. So I'm honored and privileged to be here today and share with you part of my journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're going to start with a short video from each of our entrepreneurs to explain what they do and what some of their biggest challenges are.
Hello everyone, my name is Nwagaba John Charles, CEO Nature Now Uganda and the Managing Director for Divine Empowerment and Development Skills. We are experiencing harsh climate conditions that have led to prolonged droughts, low agricultural productivity for smallholder farmers, especially in Africa. We have witnessed firsthand a number of challenges that these communities face, especially the rural women. We note that these farmers use rudimentary tools, experience high prices of imported farming tools and equipment, and prolonged drought, which leads to low agricultural productivity, resulting to low yield and low income for them. We thought to ourselves, how can we empower smallholder farmers to increase productivity? We have come up with a solution, and the solution is Nature Now water pumps that are made from recycled material. We use recycled plastic to build the impellers, recycled motors from used printers and cars, fabricated metallic waste for casing, and powered by solar panels. Currently, we are using a 3D printer and local fabrication to manufacture the water pump. It takes 3 days for us to manufacture one pump. Equipping a workshop with production machinery like laser machine, plastic crushing machine, plastic melting machine, among others, will enable us to produce at least 8 pumps per day. This will reduce the production cost and time, increase production, hence reducing the product cost. Thank you. Hello everyone. My name is Nwagaba John Charles, CEO Nature Now Uganda and the
chain. I'm the founder and CEO of Best Food Solutions Plus, a social venture which processes chili into oily, powder, and dried chilies. We do it through partnership with smallholder farmers, providing them with quality seed and buying their chili produces on contractual prices after harvest. In our employment strategies, we give priority to young people as well as widows and single mothers who are involved in our value chain from production to marketing. Our main challenges include low financial capital, which is preventing us from satisfying the local markets. Second, the inaccessibility to international certificates, which would validate the quality of our product and help us integrate to global markets and maximize sales and improve our company's revenue. Third, the lack of availability of quality seed locally, what makes it expensive for us is we have to import them from abroad and limit the number of farmers we work with. So any support that can help us to overcome these challenges is highly welcome and highly appreciated. So thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mwagawa John Charles.
Thank you very much.
CEO
And
Nature
so what
Now
we see here
Uganda
are two young
and the
entrepreneurs
Managing
really,
Director for Divine
working very
Empowerment
hard to
and
make a
Involvement
difference in
Skills.
different ways.
We are experiencing harsh
Pushing the
climate
boundaries
conditions
in
that
the
have led to
arena
prolonged
in which
droughts,
they operate.
low agricultural
So maybe
productivity
you can very
for
simply
smallholder
articulate,
farmers,
Charles,
especially in
what are your
Africa.
biggest
We
challenges
have
that you are
witnessed
facing
firsthand a number of challenges that these communities face,
Thank you so
especially
much.
the rural women.
Like I said,
We
for us, we manufacture solar water pump using recycled plastics, metallic, and recycle waste in short. So our biggest challenge is we have inadequate machinery to do the work. Currently, we are using a 3D printer, which we got from Heifer International, but its speed is very low and the demand is there. It is very high. Climate change and drought is really becoming a reality, especially in Uganda, western part of Uganda and northern part of Uganda, whereby people need local solutions, and imported pumps on the market are very, very expensive. These smallholder farmers cannot afford that. We came up with that solution just to close that gap, because these smallholder farmers have no enough money to buy these imported pumps because they are expensive. Now what we need is machinery, like a leather machine, plastic melting machine, and crushing machine. We already have the materials. Plastic are littered everywhere, which we use to manufacture the solar pump. Metallic, they are littered everywhere. If we got that plastic melting machine, we can be able to crush and melt and then turn them into a useful material to make a pump that will support smallholder farmers with water for irrigation.
Thank you very much. So actually, before you ask a question of Jahil, because I know your question is around how do you raise the capital, I'm wondering if you have questions of him.
Well, I mean, I think first of all, it's an excellent story around sustainability and the reuse of products already available in the market. That's fantastic. So congrats on that. I think the question that immediately comes to mind is, are there any limitations to sourcing the necessary inputs in order to scale the sale of these products, right? So if you remove the barriers of equipment, could you find enough used motors or plastics for your crushing to support the demand that inevitably must exist for this product? And then we can get into how to finance it.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. The materials to manufacture these pumps, that is motors and plastic, they are everywhere, and we have them. They are everywhere. So really that is not a problem for the materials. The problem we have is just machinery. Our pumps are working, really farmers in our small capacity. We have supported over 200 farmers with pumps, because we hire and we sell. Some come to us and they, hire, and some sell, and some buy as a group, because like these small holder farmers in the village, at times they are limited by resources to buy the pump at the same time. So if we get the machines, they will help us to beautify the pump so that it is really acceptable. For now, it is working. Everything, it is working perfect, but we need to make it really look beautiful and durable than what we are producing now.
I love that. Make it beautiful. Okay, so I think the solution that's working for us that might be relevant for your business is working in that supply chain that you're in currently, that I know nothing about, by the way, and identifying where the key value drivers are within that supply chain. If you start at the very end of it, you have the farmers. For us, clustering demand to ensure tractor services happen at economies of scale is what helped reduce the costs on a per unit basis of tractor services. If you got 3 farmers at 1.5 acres, 2 acres apiece, booking tractor services, it will be much more expensive than if you had 50 farmers with the same land area. Now, for irrigation, are these pumps stationary or do they move? Are they attached to a borehole? This is a quick question.
Yeah, we do surface and submersible. Yeah, and they are movable, portable, yeah.
Yeah, so if they're portable, you have an opportunity to maybe cluster demand around the water sources. So then you can amortize the cost of the machinery, at the individual user level across many, many users to reduce the individual costs. And then moving up the supply chain will work for us. What we observed in Africa was the average tractor dealer was taking anywhere from 12 to 15% margin on tractors being sold, which is almost double the margins being taken on tractors sold outside of Africa. It's a very profitable business, but most of the profits are taken on very low units of tractors being sold. And so as market makers, we use that positioning in the market to renegotiate that, bring margins down to a more reasonable 7-8% at the dealer level, right? But recognizing they run a business, and I'm not exactly sure how this is relevant for yours because I don't know exactly who is in the supply. It sounds like you're taking all your products from that already exist in the market, which is amazing. But for us, then once we reduce the margins at the dealer level, we then also created opportunities for the dealers to pick up some additional profits in after sale and the servicing of the tractors through spare parts and the technicians that go out and fix them. And so that also created the amortization of the pricing of the machinery on a time dimension. So you can make money on that tractor on a 5-10 year tractor warranty versus trying to take all your profit up front, right? And so that was at the dealer level. And then we went up to the manufacturer level to work with some of our partners who are now our biggest investors to help create some de-risking mechanisms to reduce the cost of financing. Because they're big companies, they got AA rated credit ratings, and they can support us in raising money that's cheaper and more appropriate for our markets. We were just having a conversation about the cost of capital in Africa. It's too expensive. It's unsustainable. It doesn't work. I don't know how we get around that, but it doesn't work. And so working with players within our supply chain who have a financial interest in selling more tractors, they'll pick up their margins as they sell more tractors, but they can also use their balance sheet to reduce the cost of capital to unlock more financing opportunities for the end customers, the entrepreneurs who are now servicing the farmers. And that might be relevant for you, but I think your supply chain is going to look very different from ours. And understanding where the value points in that supply chain and negotiate with those players like your life depends on it, because your business life does actually depend on it, to reduce some of the value that those folks are taking out of your hard work, right? And that will make the pie bigger. That's what's worked for us, and we haven't perfected it, but certainly that's how we've been able to bring in new capital and make that collective market bigger so everybody benefits. Is that helpful at all?
So thank you for that. Now, the one question, Charles said he has some machinery. It takes 3 days to produce one of these pumps. So also what I understood of your question was, how do you raise the money so you can buy more machinery? Is that right? Yep. Basically, how do you raise some equity very early in your business so you can buy more machinery? Is that correct?
Yeah, for me, what my question, this gentleman is scaling very fast. I've been following him. By the way, I congratulate myself for meeting you. You're my mentor, and you didn't know. I've been following you online. So you're scaling very fast. Recently in Uganda, I met even with some of your staffs, and we had a beautiful conversation. My question, I wanted to ask you, how are you making it? How have you acquired the machinery, the tools to scale almost all over Africa?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky one, because, there's all sorts of, there are very different forms of capital available. There's not a lot of it, but they're very different. And I think when I started my journey as an entrepreneur, I started that journey with the benefit of understanding finance. That was like the one thing I did understand. I knew that at the stage that I was at, it was not appropriate to go after venture capital, which is the obvious thing that most early stage companies pursue. Why was it not appropriate? Most VC funds operate on a very short fund life. They need to get out of their deals in 10 years or less, right? Most agricultural businesses take decades, in some instances over a century, to scale. If you think about the biggest companies on earth, the companies that matter commercially in the food system, it's not that many of them. It's about a dozen of them. They're all 100+ years old. It's not like tech. Tech companies are relatively young in the grander scheme of things. And I mention that to say, if you don't think you're going to be able to generate the kind of growth that will lead to venture level returns, it is a waste of everybody's time for you to pursue that capital pool, even if it seems obvious, even in the corridors of this conference room where there might even be some VCs in the audience. But if you sit down with them, in many instances, you have to educate the VC on your business and let them know, look, realistically, I'm working in an ecosystem where I have so many different just macro headwinds. Even if I perfect my product and my distribution and get financing and all these things that are obvious hurdles for all businesses globally, I have challenges at a macro level that I have absolutely no control over. We had flooding in Nigeria last year. Deji is going to talk about that probably, and the challenges that presents. We had elections in Nigeria and Kenya. The country shut down for a solid, in Nigeria 6 months, in Kenya probably about 3 months, where people just weren't doing anything because of the uncertainty and potential for security issues. And so you got to recognize those real constraints and develop a capital strategy that is adheres to the real boundaries within the market that you have to operate in. So what we did was we started with, number one, bootstrapping, and that doesn't always mean cash. It means sometimes not taking as high of a salary or going zero salary. I did that for 6 years. That's the hard truth. That's the hard and ugly truth, okay? I didn't take a salary for 6 years. Now, I was at a position where I had a very supportive family, so I could afford to do that because my wife, shout out to my wife, she was willing to be with a poor loser for 6 years. And that's the ugly side of entrepreneurship, when you're not on stages and you're not taking a salary and you're really going after it to make that business work. So we had to do that. Then we had to creatively think about, okay, I have a business that has commercial ambition, but I need to build a tech stack that's a multi-million-dollar tech stack, and I need to find people like AWS who are willing to give me credits, because I can give their employees a good story around impact, so I'm not paying for cloud. There may be some version of that exists in your business, right? We're working with smallholder farmers almost exclusively. USAID loves that. Let's have a conversation with USAID about things like water resource management and smallholder productivity, because that's your business, right? And climate smart agriculture and all this good stuff, you know. But you got to be real creative in those early years. And then when we became commercial, when we had positive unit economics, we were making money on our software as well as the tractor business, then we were able to go back into that same supply chain that I was talking about earlier and engage with the bigger players who we thought would be more active in investing and investing at attractive multiples, which I don't know if we can get into that, but that's a little detail.
We'll switch over.
Okay.
I think what's very important is if I may, just from what you said, Jahil, sometimes in the early days, you do need money. You need to raise it. I think Jahil mentioned either from donors because of the impact, or investors, or maybe a mix of both. If you want investors, you have to have a story that can show this is profitable. It can't just be about the impact if you want investors. So I think it's very important to see how is your path to actually creating some profit. Doesn't have to be a lot, so you can get the right investors to join you. But in the early days, it takes things like what Jahil did, which is you just have to find the money by himself not taking a salary, so you can prove that the concept actually works. Maybe you're already there.
Let me just add one other thing. You should be selling your products at profitable price points, right? And if you believe in that profitability, debt might also be an option. And there's all sorts of forms of debt that you can pursue on that. And we did that as well, which was incredibly risky for a software company to do. But we took on debt as our kind of next stage of funding. And we paid it back, which gave us some credibility. And then we sold off equity. But now, I mean, we're doing okay. And we own, 80% of our equity. It's sitting on our balance sheet comfortably. So now we have a lot more flexibility to sell off more equity as an opportunity to scale the business versus out of desperation.
Thank you. Mr. Eloge, your question, please.
Thank you very much. My question is, it's about scaling as well. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced while scaling your innovation, and how have you been able to overcome them? One or two which are outstanding, that if you are like, we have different businesses, but you have challenges which are proper to your business. But there are some which you saw and which are somehow common to other businesses, especially when you are scaling in different countries of Africa. So which were they, and how have you been able to overcome them?
Yeah.
Jahil, before you do, you warned us up front saying you love to talk.
I do.
I'm going to challenge you to not do so much.
Challenge not accepted. I don't accept that challenge. Okay, so I mean, as far as scaling, I will try and accept that challenge. All right, so we're still on our scaling journey. All right, we're in a lot of countries, but we also sell a software product. So it's pretty easy for us to be in countries without physically being in countries. Our tractor finance product, which is something that came later in the journey, was a product that did require us to have offices and field teams in the countries where we were deploying capital and financing actual tractors. On the software side, I mean, we pretty much, I mean, we're in 15 countries in Africa. We operate in 5 countries outside of Africa. Some countries I've never even been to. I was with an ag minister earlier this morning. He was telling me about a customer that in a market I didn't even know we were in. That's software. For your product, I think being very careful about moving too quickly is going to be important. And this was a temptation that we also had very early on. And it damaged us, I think. In our early years, we were so desperate for incremental revenue that we went into situations, entered into new markets where we couldn't adequately support the product. And as a result of that, we had some damage done to our brand. That fortunately, we were able to recover some of that brand equity that we lost. But I understand the temptation, especially when you're selling a product, you're making money, you want to sell as much of it as possible because you want to see more of that money coming back. But forcing yourself to sometimes be disciplined and flatten that growth curve a bit, even when everybody is telling you should be growing faster and faster, is going to be important, that internal discipline, because it'll benefit you in the long run, right? And all markets aren't good markets, even if you got a couple good customers, you know. And your business is really interesting because ultimately, I mean, you're working across the entire value chain, all the way down to the retail with a branded product, right? So, you know, I would be interested to see, I don't know if you're doing anything in retail yet, like working with some of the grocery stores or, but to me it would seem obvious that, you know, you have maybe opportunities, you know, to engage just maybe 1 or 2 really important customers who can give you distribution across markets that you could never physically be in, but you can leverage their distribution, right? I guess we have a version of that, but I'm not gonna get into it. But like a supermarket chain, you know, now the sales cycle is gonna be probably a lot longer to engage that supermarket chain and get them to agree to some partnership opportunity, right? But it could pay off, and that could be your vector to scale into new markets without you having to physically be there.
So if, okay, same question on innovation. What is an entrepreneur, what are you doing to keep, being ahead of your competitors so that you can stay competitive and don't be out of the market soon?
I mean, honestly, first of all, we're competing against market forces that if the last thing I'm thinking about is another company, if that's what you mean. We got much bigger issues, okay, to deal with, some of which we've already kind of talked about. I think just making sure your customers are happy and coming back, right? Making sure you're not damaging your brand, which matters a lot, with those customers who, for us, ultimately, that's a farmer who is not a whole lot of people investing at that level of the market, but respecting that customer and making sure you show up for that customer and exceed their expectations and grow, you know, your NPS score, however you measure success with the customer. Make sure you're constantly focused there. Because the bar, honestly, the flip side to the market being still at this stage of development is that the bar to wow your customer is actually, unfortunately, low, okay? And so clearing that bar is just giving a damn and really, you know, treating that customer with respect and always trying to deliver more value than you take from them. And if that if that exchange is in disequilibrium, you'll be successful. And you'll have to worry about your competitors because there's not a whole lot of folks doing that. Well, I love that chili oil, by the way. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Is that like the Rwandese chili oil? It's the same one, right?
It's similar to that, but ours is very innovative and
It's
very
better.
delicious. It's
I
better.
got you. It's spicy though. It's
It's
nice
number one in the world.
in the world.
Yeah.
The confidence, man. I love it. I hear you, bro. I hear. Is Scotch bonnet?
Come again?
Is it Scotch bonnet peppers?
Ska?
Scotch bonnet? What kind of peppers is it?
I'm not catching you.
Never mind.
Which kind of pepper is it?
Pepper.
What's the name of your
Pepper.
chili?
Yeah, the pepper
it's
you
pesto.
use.
It's pesto, but there are two forms, mainly two forms. One is chili oil, the other one is chili powder. But we also have dried chili, which is exported without being processed. It's semi-finished. So yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to see if anyone in the audience has any questions for Jahil. There should be a mic. Is there a roving mic?
I need a mic.
Hello, my name is Joseph, and I have some question to my brother. What are the role of the value for making business to be sustainable? Value, what the role of it to making business to be sustainable? Value. So I believe for business to be sustainable for so long, there must be a value. So what's the role of it for you?
Well, I mean, it's hard, right? So, like, for us, it was our customers pay us, right? Our tractor owners pay us for the software and the devices we put on the tractors. The value that we take from them in that transaction has to exceed. So they what they pay us, right, is real. I mean, this is simple. So for the tractor owners, really, it's like the fleet management piece, making sure they can reduce fraud. Machine misuse, fuel theft is a big issue. Aggregate all that savings and then increase utilization of their tractors, which is more on the revenue side. Add that up, and then we charge them a couple $100 a year for their software subscription. And it shows up pretty quickly on the SaaS side. If anybody's ever tried to sell SaaS in Africa, it's incredibly difficult. There's not that many successful SaaS businesses. So you have to create overwhelming value in order to sustain that customer base and grow it. And then on the farmer side, showing up is that's like 80% of it, unfortunately. Most of our growers, 55%, the first time they got tractor services was through Hello Tractor. They've queued up, tractor just never showed up or got too busy and wasn't able to do their fields. So showing up is important. We just crossed 1 million farmers last week. All right, so that was a massive milestone for us. And these are commercial farmers. They're small, yes. They are low income, yes. But they vote with their dollars, right? And it's not cheap. It's cheaper than alternatives, for sure. It's certainly cheaper in the long run than pulling your kids out of school and having them work the fields in advance of the season. But it's still money, and they vote with their dollars. And if we don't do a good job, they immediately vote on something else, I assure you. And so making sure you're always giving the customer more than you take, as simple as it sounds, when you selling and you expect money, you find out real quick if that is out of balance, right? So I don't know I hope that answers your question. It's probably obvious, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We'll take just one more and then we'll move on.
Hello, my name is Hans Njobelo from Tanzania, a company called 360 Connect. And I have a quick question. From what you've been saying, it took you 6 years without taking a salary, and I'm pretty sure that had something to do with your mental health. I mean, it might or might not be, but my question is, how do you deal with the business challenges while staying mentally fit? Because a lot of entrepreneurs whether we like it or not, faces a lot of mental health issues when it
Yeah.
comes to managing businesses and keeping it real with yourself. That's my simple question.
Oh my God, I mean,
Are you mentally fit?
I am not. I am not. And it legitimately sucks. I know we do a lot of entrepreneur worship. It's not a cool job. Like, it really is not cool. If you got a good job and I quit my job. I don't even know if I should tell you. When I quit my job, I have still not even come to 50% of what I was making when I quit my job 13 years ago. Okay? It is not glamorous. Mental health, I have my own personal routines. I do not compromise on sleep. I find when I do, my stress levels elevate. I become less of a fun person to be around. All right? I try and codify certain healthy practices in my lifestyle. I walk to work and back. That's about 50 minutes each way. That's a good way for me to ramp up for the workday. And then I got 2 young kids. I want to be able to walk home and be available for them when I get home because they ultimately come first. Work is secondary, even though, you know, you care about the work, but family is first. Everything else kind of ripples out from there. I'm working on my diet. I don't exercise, right? But I'll just end with this. Keeping the work in its proper perspective. You know, you're doing good work, but realistically, it's damn near impossible, okay? So when you fall short, it's okay. Everybody wants you to show up and it's kind of funny. Like, everybody wants you to show up and talk about how wonderful you are. No. It sucks, and 90% of the things we do is wrong. And if you go into it with that expectation that you're probably going to screw it up, but you're going to keep pushing and put family first, so when you do fail and if the business goes out, you still got that. And you're good. That's a hell of a foundation to build on top of. Not your capital structure, not your investors, not your partners, not all the people here, but the people that really matter. And then beyond that, your customer. Because if you deliver for them, they'll know. Even if it doesn't work, they know when you try, right? So that's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Jahil. Thank you so much to our young entrepreneurs. Wishing you all the best in what you do. You really know how to make a guy feel bad. You look like that with not working out. Go away.
Look at you. Don't try and redeem yourself after you talk about my genetic deficiencies, okay? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very
and congrats to the entrepreneurs. Thank you. Good job, man.
Thank you. So now we're going to have our second set of entrepreneurs, if you two would care to join us, and Deji from Nigeria, from Apex. Please come up on stage, and everyone give them a warm applause. Deji is a long-time and dear friend, and all I'll say is, being from Kenya myself, a lot of Kenyan businesses, you know, they start off in Kenya and think, okay, now we're going to go to Nigeria, which is a huge market, and we're going to get big. And now what's commonly known is, as a Kenyan business, you go to Nigeria to fail. And here we have Deji, who's actually built a business out of Nigeria that's slowly taking over the continent. So it's a real pleasure to have you on stage. So maybe you can introduce yourselves, and then we can have our entrepreneurs introduce themselves too.
Thank you, Ahmed. I'm a commodity trader. You know, Jael and I started in Nigeria around the same time. And he left me in Nigeria when we were both struggling. And he's living the life in Kenya, so I decided to join him last year.
Ok, bonjour tout le monde. Je suis Madame Marceline Koutatuka. Je suis ingénieure en agronomie tropicale, consultante et formatrice en technique de production et de protection des plantes. Je forme, j'encadre les petits producteurs, ceux qui sont déjà sur le terrain et ceux qui commencent maintenant les activités. Je suis fondatrice de Mektoto, l'entreprise agroalimentaire spécialisée dans la production, la transformation et la commercialisation des produits agricoles. Et le produit sur lequel je travaille actuellement, qui vous sera présenté tout à l'heure, c'est l'élevage, la reproduction de 3 races rustiques de volailles pour la commercialisation de la viande fraîche, en fait la chair de volaille. Merci.
Thank you very much, and thanks for joining us today. And now if we can have Judith, Madam Judith.
Thank you very much. My name is Judith Karia, and I'm the founder and managing director of Ava Group, a company that makes pineapple and grape wine for the purpose of providing markets to smallholder farmers, providing employment opportunities to young adults. Also, through that, we make animal feeds out of the waste that is being produced when we make wine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So if we can have the videos, please.
My name is Judith Karia, and I'm the founder and managing director of Ava Group, a company that adds value to pineapple and grapes to make wine under the name of Ava Santiago. Ava Santiago is the aromatic wine that is packaged in 375 milliliter, 750 milliliter, and 5 liters, available in different liquor stores in Dar es Salaam, Mbeya, Geita, and Mwanza. To date, the company works with 100 smallholder pineapple farmers from the coastal region of Tanzania and 5 grape growers from Dodoma. Through this business, we provide markets to the growers, employment opportunities to young adults, and add commercial value to the produce. After procuring the raw material from the farmers, we wash, peel, and extract the juice, which is then undergo fermentation process to get wine. We use processed pineapple waste to make animal feeds, hence eco-friendly business, and support to dairy farmers by supplying them with affordable animal feeds. Apart from manufacturing alcoholic drink, the company is looking forward to add value to pineapple by making juice and biscuits. The company faces different challenges, including low quality of raw materials because farmers use traditional methods of farming. The business requires expensive machinery, lab equipment, and most of the packaging materials, such as caps, are imported. Also, failure to meet the demand of the market due to the low production capacity, and farmers are scattered and don't have trucks to transport their produce to the factory. Hence, the company incur high costs to collect the raw material from the farms and distribute our product to different regions. Thank you very much.
Judith, if you have questions for Ayodeji, why don't we start with that?
Yes, I have a question, and my question is based on what advice do you have for SME leaders on building a resilient and sustainable organization, especially in the agricultural sector?
Resilient and sustainable
organization or company, especially with the relation to agricultural sector.
Thank you. I think it's about people. Something I often say is that, leaders build people, people build organization. We often start with that moment when, as entrepreneurs, we're the CEO, we're the CFO, we're the HR person, we do all the recruitment. As we start to build the organization, we never share that responsibility. It's something we all do. We remain that person. And sometimes it gets to a point where either you then sort of limit your capacity to grow, or rather than focus on some part of the business that you're best at, some particular functions, maybe recruiting or maybe document keeping, the volume then gets more than what you are actually the best at doing. But if you've not empowered people, then you grow 4 or 5 years into the business grows quite well, and you find out that there is that issue you have to deal with, or you're the only person in the organization that can do it. So I say, even if it's an intern, you can start entrusting them with certain responsibilities, and make sure that for all your core functions, as you grow, you have somebody that you're building the capacity to be able to, shadow you first, and over time take that responsibility. I think it helps you separate management and ownership, as you scale up the business.
Anything else? Do you have any other questions?
No.
No? Okay. We're good with the video? Go ahead, please.
Bonjour à tous. Je suis honoré de vous accueillir dans le monde passionnant de l'entreprise Mektoto Agro-Industrie.
L'activité majeure en cours est celle de l'élevage et la reproduction de 3 races rustiques de volailles, les Sussex, les Brahma, les Goliath, pour la commercialisation au kilo du poulet fermier frais emballé. Les opérations y afférentes se résument comme suit. Les œufs fécondés de nos poules sont collectés, mis en incubation dans une couveuse électrique pendant 21 jours pour obtenir des poussins. Les poussins éclos sont élevés, nourris, soignés avec des techniques éco-responsables jusqu'à l'âge d'abattage. Des coqs ou bien des poules triées dans le poulailler sont abattus, immergés dans de l'eau chaude préalablement chauffée à une température précise. Après vient le plumage,
poulet nettoyé en 1 minute par la plumeuse. Ça, ce sont les œuvres de Mektoto.
L'éviscérage, la pesée. Après, c'est l'emballage et l'étiquetage. Enfin, suivra la livraison aux clients sur commande. Les plus grands défis que rencontre Mektoto dans ses activités, l'innovation, l'évolution, assurer la maîtrise de la matière première, ingrédients pour l'aliment de bétail, et le dernier défi, c'est le financement.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Madame Marceline. Any questions you have for Ayodeji?
La question que j'ai, c'est que la remarque faite est celle-ci. Les petits producteurs et puis les petites entreprises privées éprouvent beaucoup de difficultés pour moderniser leur équipement, qui puisse faciliter, n'est-ce pas, la productivité ou bien augmenter leur production. Déjà, les banques ne leur font pas confiance parce que souvent nos activités ne sont pas assurées, il n'y a pas d'assurance. Ils craignent tout le temps les risques que c'est l'agriculture, l'élevage, tout ça, c'est des activités à risque. Donc, ceux qui acceptent, les quelques investisseurs qui acceptent, donnent pas grand, les moyens sont limités et ne permettent pas à accomplir, à réaliser votre projet. Et ma question, ça c'est le constat. Maintenant, ma question est celle-ci. Pour eux qui ont déjà grandi, qui sont grands aujourd'hui, comment ils ont fait pour trouver des investisseurs qui les ont aidés à réaliser les perspectives de leur projet? Merci.
So I think fun fact about me, and looks like, so I worked 10 years before FX, before going to business school, and then FX, my investment life. I worked 10 years with my mom building the family business. So I guess this is this is payback day where I'm here. So I feel, and it's an SME trading business, you know, and so I feel and I can connect. My daddy was a poultry farmer, so I understand that business very well. You know, as a weekend, part of what will come over the weekend that we used to look up to was the eggs that will be the cracks from the poultry, and that was, you know, the weekend meals over the years. So first is that I think that there has to be a vision of what you want to get your business at. Success, you know, in my best endeavor, success is what you achieve over what you have set out to achieve. It is a measure of what you have done over what you have defined that in the next 2 3 years, this is what I want to do. This is the amount of resource, this is the amount of commitment, and this is what success means to me. That's extremely important for an SME. It can be big, it can be small. It can be small and beautiful. So not everything is big, and not everything has to get to that. Now, if that's the ambition, then you then get into how do I tweak this model to be able to be on that journey? And it's not a one-off process. It's something that you have to continuously change every year, every other year, and then grow in steps till you get to there. But the very, very important part of setting out a business is, what's my vision? What does success look like? And then, you know, the other part is then charting that path to there. In terms of fundraising strategy, debt is not the, particularly when we look at debt and we think of traditional banking debt, it's not the most friendly instrument. So when you think about it, and I remember this from that's why I started from the paraphrase of me and my mom in our trading business. One of the things that I used to, you know, that I pondered a lot about was every time there was a public holiday, and Sundays and Saturdays, even when we didn't open shop, and the bank didn't open shop, we had to pay interest. You pay interest 365 days in a year. When you are in a down season, or you are in an up season, there's an interest cost accruing. When there's a delay, even the ones melted to you by the bank, they still charge you the interest. So, you know, before we get to that point where we bring in our debt providers, you must get to a point where there's consistent cash flow, there's predictable cash flow, and also you match the tenor of the debt you're raising with the cash. So if you want to breed birds, for instance, and they're going to use 6 months, or maybe you're going to sell at your peak period, which is around December or January, or maybe it's a wine business and it's during the summer where people do a lot of parties, and that's your peak period. You don't want to go and take a debt that says every month you'll pay a certain flat amount over the time, because you then have a mismatch between how the debt behaves and how your business behaves. So it's then to then say, what do I want to achieve, and how do I need to design the business to be able to deliver on that vision that I have, and what type of funding can help me deliver that. Sometimes it is debt, sometimes it's not debt.
So if I may just build on the question, so you spoke about debt. For a young startup which has been self-funded by the founder, who's reached their limits, how do you sell your story for equity when you're still very small?
So it's not an easy one. So my rule of thumb is this: if you're I say before we get into and I'm saying this in the context of Nigeria, but I'm sure it's also a general African context. We don't have an angel investment network. That kind of person that comes up says, okay, I want to give you this money in this structured manner, and I want to take a piece of your company, and then you report in 2 years, and then if you grow, get a new investor, I'll grow with you, or get bought out and collect the money. You know, that angel comes in, most often not looking like an angel we think about. It comes in with a big robe and some chains on the neck, and like a typical, and it's like, you have to be sure of who that kind of person is. Most of the time, that's the kind of money that comes in first. It could be family members, it could be friends, it could be associates, and then it comes in. Now, the times mostly are not well defined. I think that's where we can improve on, so that when we get those kind of money, the times are, we get a little bit of business development services that can help us shape that times that it's a little bit clear. But I think that's where a lot of times we have the problem in that first state of running, because even in finance we say friends, family, and fools are the first set of investors that typically will come in. So that's that part. What I always implore is, if it's a 1-page or a 2-page agreement, always have it when somebody is bringing money to your business, and make sure that they also understand what you want to achieve with it. That's almost always the first phase of that business. Now, the other part is also being part of networks that can allow you exposure, and then that exposure helps you get some concessionary facilities where they are available. So sometimes it's being part of the MSME network in a lot of countries. Sometimes it's being part of programs like, if AGRA is doing something like that, or USAID or DFID, those kind of capital can help. I remember that even in the journey of AFEX, in 2015, when we were building the first money that was outside of our investors in AFEX, the first money we got, and one of the most catalytic money we got was a grant from, it was DFID, through a program managed by Palladium, Propco McCarthy, Jail, I'm sure you remember. And it was a 6%, it was called Rolling Out of Poverty Bond. It was a repayable grant. So if we didn't make the money, we didn't have to pay it back. If we made the money, we paid back, and then we'll pay a 6%, and then they took on the exchange rate risk. It was just very easy. It was £350, so $500 at the time, and that was the first money that helped us prove. That was the first cash we actually gave out to farmers as loans. So we're in a situation where the business we had, the money we had raised from investors was just to build a business. We talked to our customers, the farmers wanted a loan. Now, I couldn't go and sell to the bank that I would give a farmer a loan and they will repay back in 6 months. So it didn't work. No bank will fund farmers at that time. I needed to prove that when I give them, I had the capacity to repay back before I then could go back. And then I was like, where do we find the money? I can't use the investor's money that I'm using to build a business to give a farmer the loan. So that was the conundrum. We're able to structure this. We're lucky we got it at the right time. It was the first set of loans that actually went to the farmer to prove that model and then when we got to them and said, we have loans for you, this is what the loan looks like, and this is how you'll pay back. And that was where traction started to. And then we got their trust. They paid back with grains. We started getting grains into the warehouse. We bought more than what they produce. So it is being innovative, and it's that innovation that is actually the big value of you as an entrepreneur in that early days.
Thank you very much. Madame Marcella, any more questions? No? From the audience, any questions for Ayodeji? Yes, please.
Thank you. My question is related to how you build customers from the get-go, like what are the most important things to note as a startup entrepreneur to ensure that you're bringing those customers that you're going to return later on to give you a push in terms of success? Thank you.
If I get the question, how do you get and retain your customers? Okay. So, so when you start a business, you have a few, what they call like your foundation hypothesis. For your business to be successful, people want this, and then 2, 3, 4 things that should be true for you to be successful. Quite often we get in and the market will say, we want 1, 2, but then there's another 2 or 3 other things that we want. You have to be very curious as an entrepreneur, and especially an early stage business, to look for that mix of, besides test your initial hypothesis, which ones are true, which ones are not true, and then quickly pivot in the early days before your costs start to go up to the ones that then look like, I am solving problems of a certain group of people that are willing and able to pay me for it. I was once in a Stanford class of one of the most renowned professor of innovation. It was a group of 20 very smart, at least we thought we were very smart guys, and we're talking about, and he said, what is innovation? And we all had very fancy things to say about innovation. And it was like wrong. And at the end of the day, it says, you're missing one part. It's not innovation until it is the hand of a customer, and the customer is willing and able to pay for it. You can innovate, it's called invention. But when it gets to a customer that is willing and able to pay for it, then it's an innovation. Because that's when you can scale, that's when you can really solve a problem. So that is the first test that you have to. For us at Apex, the first hypothesis that came to the market was, we're going to build a financial market. It was a digital play. We bought the most expensive technology. We actually used 70% of our first initial capital raise to buy a technology. It was a lot of money. It was a $7 million mistake. We didn't earn $20 out of that $7 million. And then with the market, it was just not a technology problem. Our assumption was that information was not there. Organize information, let the buyer see what is available at what price, and then they will buy it. But the farmer didn't even have a warehouse. Every warehouse in the region was empty. There was no incentive for the farmer to even take his product to the warehouse. And then you trade it on a technology platform. So, and then it was like, look, it looks like every meeting we went to, we sounded brilliant, but people were like, yeah, you guys are really good and you must know what you're doing, but you're not solving the problem of my farmers. So it was then that bold initiative to go and say, farmer, what is your problem? And then pick a list and then say, which ones can we solve for? Then which one can we solve for and scale? And then, to be honest, 4 or 5 years after, they really then start to really ask, how can we make this profitable? And not all business will go through that journey, but that was our own journey, in building it. But it took 2 years before I knew we had product market fit, which is the point you have a customer willing to pay for your product.
I have a question. So actually, building on that, you said before, and it's a common saying, that the 3 Fs, family, friends, and fools. Just out of curiosity, are there any, did you actually attract fools in your business, and are they still there?
Yeah, I think I've been on the other side. I've been a fool in a few businesses. you think the first of it all was 2017. You know, and I thought, you know, we got this agriculture business, you know, and I was like, how can I keep saying something I'm not doing? So I think I started 2016 and started with a small farm. Like, we have to do this farming business thing. I mean, this, that's what we share. That's the story we always share with. And I was like, you know, I want to go and do this agriculture thing. So first year I did like 20 hectares. I didn't recover my money. The second year I was like, I did 40 hectares. It was a little bit, you know, it made a loss, and I was like, okay. But I understand what the problem is. You know, we can solve this problem. I need to get a full-time manager. I need to put in more capital, buy hybrid seeds. I was like, let's do. Got a 200-hectare farm, maize farm. Actually took the money that we used to use to pay our mortgage. I'm lucky I'm still married. I have a very kind wife. And I took that money. I was like, look, I'm just going to put it on, you know, the Excel sheet worked out, put it on a farm, make twice of it, come back, use half to pay for, you know, the mortgage, and then take the other half and invest and start to plan for my retirement. I put in about $70 million on 200 hectares of maize in 2017.
How much?
70 million naira, sorry, not dollars, sorry. 70 million naira, no, not dollars. 70 million naira on 200 hectares of maize in 2017. I came out with $30 million, lost 40. That 30 million naira, sorry. Ah, shit, I don't pray in naira these days. That's the problem. I came back with $30 million, and that was one of it. But there's many mistakes like that I've made. Yes, you know, I said we used $7 million out of 10 of our first raise to buy technology that didn't make sense. You know, I'm sure that guy wasn't happy.
So clearly what you're learning is the power of storytelling. No matter how many times we told him naira, he still says dollars. And now you know why there were so many fools.
Okay, I'm having the question. My name is Ebenezer Lema. I'm CEO and founder of Eagle Kingdom Network Organization. We deal with organic feeding and organic poultry, with organic medicine and the other concerning poultry. I'm having the two questions. First, as an entrepreneur, when we are starting expanding, we have this temptation of not sticking in one place. Like, we're in poultry, and we want to say, am I in the right place? You have the temptation of all over. You want to diversify to this, to that. So that is, how did you win that temptation of say, okay, I'm not going to deal with commodity marketing? That's the first thing. Second, diversification, that's scaling up. How do we mix technology and scaling? You know, my example, in our country, Tanzania, we have different regions. So, like, we want to scale up to one region to another, but using technology. So I just want the combination of the technology and scale up both together. Thank you.
So the first question is a very, very important one, and I feel like it's a existential problem for entrepreneurs. A good entrepreneur, by design and definition, is a problem solver. He sees an opportunity, he wants to solve it, and he gets that adrenaline high of, I'm almost solving it, I'm almost solving it. The day you fix it and you solve that problem, it starts to get boring. And you want to get another one and say, you know, I can just add poultry. And if I had poultry, if I had, you know, piggery to my poultry, then it's BioConnect. You know, it's a problem that we always have. My best answer is find somebody that is the opposite. So you need the visioner, and then you need to have a builder. The builder is like, no, we don't have the money for it. And that's fine now. For me, that's like, and it's not like once you get out of that startup mode, it's going to be a way. You know, sometimes they're like, Deji, you're the chief troublemaker. Get out of the room because you're just creating new problems for us. Because for me, it's like, let's break it, let's fix it, let's make it work better. And sometimes, you know, just being out of the room is a solution. So you have to have somebody that is your, you know, counter force. You know, if you're someone like Jael and myself, then you need somebody like his beautiful wife here that says, Jael, stop, stay. You know, let's stay in this country. And, you know, it's the kind of thing that you need to really have a counterparty that can be your ordinary. That's because it doesn't stop. On the second point in technology, I think you need to, one thing, particularly in agriculture, you need to understand what is the business. Very often we leave the business and we're building technology. You have to understand what is your engine of making money, right? Now, technology should help that process. Now, half the time, because it's fun and it's cool and it's exciting, we forget how we make money and we get excited about building technology. And, and then that becomes a distraction of itself. So besides that, on the other side is that technology also helps a lot with scaling. So payments, for instance, in our world, most of the time we have to meet the farmer, count notes and give him, or transfer when we know him, he says, this is my number, I pay him. If you have a system that can keep your books and pay him automatically, that may be the biggest innovation you need to make your operation easy, make it easy for you to audit your operations and scale. So technology doesn't have to be grand. And then when you think technology, think I'll still be innovating new technologies in the next 5 years and the next 10 years. So don't try to, build a spaceship in day one. Just do something that works and gets one thing easy, and then come back and do something else again.
Thank you. Go for it. Sure.
So, Nigeria is a very difficult country, until I went to Kenya. So, different issues, right? I think every country is unique like that. Nigeria is just hard, there's no power, there's no road, everybody wants to outsmart you, but then the good thing about it is that there's also no regulation that is so much in your way of doing things. It's an open room. Then the market is so large that there's a lot more collaboration spirit in doing business than there is competition. I know 7 or 8 of us grain traders and our P&L eats each other. In fact, somebody will say, I was reviewing these companies and then I saw your name on their balance sheet and things like that. So there's quite a lot more collaboration in that environment, which is good. But then it's just hard doing everything. Versus a Kenya where the market is actually quite organized. The cooperatives are there. You could transact with a group of 800, 1,000 people versus in Nigeria where husband and wife would not sell and collect money together. It will not happen. You pay the husband separate, you pay the wife separate. So different structural issues. But then there's quite a lot of rules, there's quite a lot of regulation. You have to do something with the county governments and the sub-county administrator and it's a different regulatory environment. And then you also have to understand that, you're a foreign, we're all Africans, but you're a foreign in every country you have. And then you're a Nigerian on top of that, So everybody says that Nigerian business has started to buy grains. And when I go to the farmers or the traders, the first thing is that, are you exporting maize that you're buying? What they're not asking is that, are you taking our maize in Kenya to Nigeria? So you really have to give them the right answer and then explain that, no, this is for food security in the country. So that's the difference. But I think the biggest constraint to being able to scale across multiple countries is just the share of management time. Finding that right talent to be able to support that growth ambition, and then the share of your time, to be able to oversee that growth. At least in my experience, it's been okay, I have to be on this call, I have to be for these people, I have to attend this retreat and this meeting, and everybody feels like if you're not there or somebody senior is not there in that meeting, then you're not taking them seriously. And you can't also just create operations and not be there. So I think that share of management time, for me, is one of the biggest limiting factor to scaling across multiple countries.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the really lively discussion. Thank you to our entrepreneurs for sharing with us what they're doing and their struggles, and to the audience for participating with your thoughts and questions. If I can just ask us all to give an applause, particularly for our 4 entrepreneurs and our 2 CEOs as well. Thank you.
Je voulais préciser quelque chose. J'avais oublié de présenter mon pays. Je suis du Congo-Brazzaville. Merci.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to have all of you. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.